admin. Anybody thinks that? Above that, the center thing that looks like a square
This is not.
on the white bar. White bar is center square.
Next to the X.
Way up there.
On the top,
Yep.
yeah.
There,
Sorry. Oh,
and
Signed in.
Participants, I think we're the only ones in
yeah,
it.
nobody do admit. If you see that little participants bump out the number, then a thing will pop up to say admit.
I know. Brian, said he was gonna join.
Okay. Thank you. So the meeting will come to order. It is 6:30 PM. And Sunny, if you would be so kind as to do the roll call.
Happy to. Chair Phillips,
Present.
Commissioner Brandbrecker,
Here.
Commissioner Fry,
Here.
Commissioner Richards. Here. Commissioner Jim Phillips,
Here.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Here.
Commissioner Pendergrass.
Here.
Thank you. And I did not think that we needed the planner here because we had the report and he spoke to it
Okay,
before, so.
very good. Thank you. So moving on to the third agenda item, which is the approval of the agenda. And I would like to make a motion to move the approval of the minutes from agenda item 6 to agenda item 4. And to make this a permanent placement of this item on the agenda. So for tonight's purposes, that would move the public hearing to agenda item 5. It would move the application for the street ROW vacation to agenda item 6. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
Very good. It is moved and seconded to move the approval of the minutes from agenda item 6 to agenda item 4, making the public hearing agenda item 5, the application for the street ROW vacation agenda item 6. Is there any further discussion? And if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The agenda is amended as specified. Are there any other amendments or additions to the agenda?
I actually have 2 things to add under new business. One I would like to add is, as an agenda item, the legalization of recreational marijuana on August 1st, 2023 as an item. And then the second thing is I'd like to just have a brief future land use plan or fluke plan discussion. So our map was looked at in 2020, but I've got a couple of these here.
Okay, so it has been moved to add 2 items to new business. One is a conversation about the August 1st date that begins the legalized recreational marijuana legislative issue. The other is a conversation about the future land use plan. Is there a second to the motion to add these 2 items to new business?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to add these 2 items to new business. Is there any further discussion? And if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of adding these 2 items to new business, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. So motion is carried and we will add those 2 items to new business.
Madam Chair, if I could
Yes.
just get clarification, who seconded?
I think.
That was, oh, that was you. Thank you.
JP.
Wendy's,
Yes.
JP, JR.
No, it was Kathy's
right,
motion.
JR.
right, but you seconded Wendy's motion.
No, I didn't. Well, no, I
The
seconded.
original I
yeah.
seconded, he.
I didn't
he
second.
Those
seconded
2 did
the
the first
amendment.
one. Us
I
2
did the
the
second one.
Right, I need to get some
Yeah.
cards.
What's on second?
We got too many gyms in the room. that's
Okay,
for
do
sure.
all the amendments together and then adopt the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, so for the approval of the minutes of June 8, 2023 meeting, these have been previously distributed. I want to make a motion to correct the minutes on the second page.
So we had a motion to move an agenda item, and then we had a motion to add an agenda, two agenda items.
Correct.
And do we have to have then a final motion to approve everything, or we're just done?
We've approved those two
We're
things
everything.
separately.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for asking.
So then you approve the agenda by itself, altogether?
The agenda is
they did
approved
that.
with the amendments.
We approved the agenda before we added the others.
No.
Before we added her motion, right?
That's what I thought.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it,
That's kind of what I thought.
got
I
it,
was kind of confused about.
got it. So, moving on to the minutes. I want to make a motion to correct the minutes regarding the public hearing for Kent Larson's variance application. The Planning and Zoning Commission's findings of fact as submitted by Kathy Brandt Rucker and read during the June 8 meeting, then submitted by email on June 9 to the city administrator, do not match what's reflected in the minutes. And so I am asking that we correct the minutes to read what was actually in the findings of fact that Kathy submitted. And Colleen, we can get these to you by email, or I can give this page to
I
you right now.
have, but not before I watched the video about 3 or 4 times to try to transcribe what was being said, so.
Okay, do you want me just to hand this over to you? And that way you know exactly what you're looking for in your email?
I sent it to you,
I,
right?
yeah, got
So
it,
you could
Yeah,
just
but I
cut and
emailed it
paste.
to you
I
and
got
then I
it.
also emailed it to you.
but after I read it, but we don't change the minutes, we just put it in.
To correct the minutes, so
You got it correct.
you have to correct them if they were not right.
I'll copy and paste.
And so there is a motion to correct the minutes.
And did you also on item 5, when you're doing the findings of fact, instead of Kathy's finding of fact, if we're gonna follow what we did, instead of the findings of fact for denial, like at the top of the page, it'd probably make sense to do findings of fact for approval.
Yes, and to put planning and zoning commissions findings of fact for approval. As opposed to Kathy's findings of fact. Yes,
Yes. And at the very bottom too of that section, just above the public hearing, same thing. Based on the findings of fact, Kathy's above should just be based on the findings of fact for approval above.
mhm. Are there any further corrections to the minutes for June 8th? If there are no further corrections, is there a motion to approve the minutes for June 8th as corrected?
Make a motion to approve them as corrected.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the June 8 minutes as corrected. Is there any further discussion? And if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The minutes for June 8, 2023 are approved as corrected. And so we are opening up the public hearing at this time. This is regarding a variance application to City Code Section 94.20, curbs, curb cuts, and driveways. The applicant is Jeff Wangsness at 95 Fifth Street Southwest, Orinoco. And so we will open the public hearing at 6:39 p.m. And if there's anyone present who wants to make a public comment, please sign the form that is at the podium and turn it into me if you would, please. And speakers will have 3 minutes to speak and they will be heard in turn. So this is the first call for public comments. Is Mr. Wangsness here?
Yes.
Would you like to make comments at this point in time?
I could have just, yeah.
If you like,
Good evening, council members. We're trying to move ahead with for our garage building project we have going. It's been kind of a move along at a snail's pace, but we're making progress, due to a slight mix up that we had with the building blueprints, but, we got that all straightened out. We're trying to do the rough framing inspection. And that is, should be done here within the next 2 weeks, I'm hoping. And the final step in this is to get the access to the driveway, which we have right now a older garage in front, which has a driveway, which that will be vacated or out of there. The garage will be gone in the front. And then we have access to our main house, our attached garage. And we'd like to make a driveway access to the new garage and back. And then we have two driveways. So that's kind of where we're at, waiting for approval for the other driveway. We get that in and have access to the new garage.
Does anybody on the commission have questions
Yeah.
for Mr. Wangsness?
Maybe I missed it. So when will the old garage be done?
Well, I still have a vehicle in there that I gotta get moved out of there. And I'd like to put it in the back garage, the new garage driveway at least until we get the framing and get it inspected and get the okay to move stuff in there. So, at the last meeting that we talked about, if when we get the new garage, inspected and okayed, then I plan on moving most of the stuff, getting the stuff out of the old garage and then having that removed. So I'm hoping within the next maybe month.
Now, is there any kind of a deadline based on when the project started that he needs to be aware of?
Are you talking about a timeline?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we were looking, I think, at 3 months that there were, but I think we don't have the final completion for
Right.
the sign off, and that's what the delay was of what's going on. So this was going back to last year when he started to build it and doing it. So you've just kind of been delayed waiting for the sign off for what, from what I
Right.
understand, so.
yeah, and understandable.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is there a timeline or a deadline that he needs to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, we want to try to get that knocked down and taken care of as soon as possible. So you gonna pull the old culvert out or are you gonna?
We're gonna pull the old culvert out for the existing old garage in front. Yes, that will be gone.
So then there won't be access to get into the old garage anyway with the
Right.
culvert, so, you know.
Yeah,
that's-
no, my point was just so he doesn't come up against a deadline that he wasn't aware of.
So
Yeah, that was,
the garage is already up, if I recall.
The garage is up, yes, we've had one rough in framing inspection, which there were some markups on the blueprint that were not transferred to the blueprint that I received back. The one set of blueprints were kept here at City Hall, had the markups for the changes that had to be made. And they weren't on the ones that were given back to me, so we went ahead and built it according to the blueprint that we had, and it wasn't up to what the inspector wanted. So we kind of had to call the engineers in and get it revamped, and since then, my carpenter has taken care of it, so now we're just getting the rough in electrical going, and then we'll be ready for the rough in inspection. So hopefully we can move forward here quick, Josh.
Okay.
But for some reason, it's a couple weeks before they come to inspect it, yeah?
I still have a little bit to do with the rough and electrical that he wanted, I guess he wanted that done. I wasn't aware of that, but
Same inspector, I take it?
I believe so, yeah. So,
Yes, that permit was pulled under last year's building official.
It
So
was in our packet too,
they,
right?
yeah, they
Mhm.
continue on.
I would just think that the state does their own electrical inspections, don't they?
They do that part, yes.
I have pulled an electrical, permit for it, so the state's aware that I'm doing.
And the only time constraint is really that once once it's final, that's, you got 3 months.
And it'll go.
To- yes.
For sure, as you go.
Any other questions for Mr. Wangsmith? Thank you.
Thank you.
So are there other comments regarding this variance? This is the second call for public comments. And third call for public comments. Do we have anybody up there? No? Okay, we are closing the public hearing at 6:45 PM. And then moving on to the planner's report. Sunny, since we don't have our planner, would you be so kind as to read for us the report?
All right. I think we're a little familiar with what's trying to happen too.
Mhm.
The introduction, the Wagnesses, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. Are building a new garage on their single family lot for which they were granted a variance last year to be over the maximum allowable square footage for accessory buildings. The property had 2 garages, an attached garage and a detached garage, and 2 driveways, one serving each garage. A condition of approval of the garage project was that the detached garage be taken down and the old driveway removed. City Code 94.20 stipulates single-family uses shall be limited to 1 driveway access per property unless a variance is granted for a second curb cut. The Wagnesses are requesting a variance for the new second curb cut to serve the new garage. Discussion: with the new garage and driveway, the property is simply replacing 1 driveway for another. It had 2 driveways before, and it will have 2 driveways after. The code reference above on driveways is in chapter 94 of the general regulations section of the city code and not the zoning code, but it specifically notes a variance being required. So the variance criteria in section 1.151.401 of the zoning code will be applied. These are excerpted at the end of this report. The practical difficulties and reasonable use. The basic underlying standards for variances are that there are practical difficulties in meeting the ordinance and that the proposed use is reasonable. In this case, a new garage and driveway are typical and reasonable uses of the property. It is also clearly difficult to build a new garage on the opposite side of the house from the old garage and not add a new driveway. The request satisfies these basic tests. Extraordinary circumstances. Usually this criterion means that there is something unique about the property itself, but in this case, the extraordinary circumstances are that a new garage and driveway are being located in a different but reasonable location than the original, creating the practical difficulty noted above. Essential character of the locality. The essential character criterion means that the proposal will not change the neighborhood in some noticeable way that would be objectionable. That is not the case here. The new garage and driveway will be in keeping with the character of the area. Consistency with zoning code and comprehensive plan. The request is typical and ordinary and does not pose any issues that would not be in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan. Recommendation from the planner, and I concur. I recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the variance for a second driveway at 95 5th Street Southwest as submitted by the applicant with the following conditions. The conditions for approval are: one, the existing driveway serve the old drive.
Should that be an
serving the
old garage?
Driveway, yeah, it should be garage.
I think it's garage, yeah.
Will be removed. All requirements of the city engineer will be followed, and that typically speaks to, sizing of the culvert and that sort of thing. So the findings of fact for approval, number one, city code in section 94.20 allows one driveway access per single family lot unless a variance is granted for a second driveway. The property at 95 Fifth Street Southwest has had two driveways for many years. The owner wishes to build a new garage to replace an older one on the property and received approval for the garage in 2022 with the condition that the old garage and driveway be removed. Number three, there are practical difficulties in meeting the ordinance since the new garage requires a new driveway. It could not be served by either existing driveway. Number four, the request will not alter the essential character of the area. Number five, the request meets the intent of the zoning code and comprehensive plan. And number six, the request meets the criteria for approving a variance in section 1.1. And as noted, there was a 60-day deadline for action, and we executed the additional extension for
Mhm.
60 days, so that moved.
I think it was up to
There you
August
go.
8th.
I
believe
think
that
that's
was what the
I had in
document
my
said,
date.
yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
August 8th.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Sunny. And so it is time to open up the commission discussion. So anybody that would like to begin?
I move that we approve the variance that there is for the driveway and for the garage to continue, so.
Okay, there is a motion to approve the variance. Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the variance application for the Wagnesses at 95 Fifth Street Southwest in Orinoco. Is there any further discussion? And if not, I'll call for vote.
Just to clarify, so when you are saying approve, you're saying approve it based on using these findings of fact as well as the conditions for approval, making sure that those are on there too. Yep, okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the Wagnesses variance, please say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, please say no. The variance application for the Wagnesses at 95 Fifth Street Southwest, Orinoco is approved. And I'd just like to remind you that the Orinoco Planning and Zoning Commission is an advisory commission, and we will be forwarding our recommendation to the city council for their consideration at the July 18th city council meeting, as they are the final authority in this decision. Okay,
Good.
thank you. And so agenda item number 6 is the application for street ROW vacation. And that is L.2 B.1 Woodland Hills 3rd. And the applicant is Cedar Point Partners LLC. And it looks like we have a presentation of a project overview. And is the party or parties that are going to make that presentation ready?
You don't mind if I show what your plans are for that? Because it's just really exciting. Just gonna say.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, for the record, I'm Bill Twain. I'm with WC Massey Consultants, doing the engineering and surveying work for a proposed project on, it's actually Cedar Woodlands 3rd subdivision. lot number one. And the project we did send in our application schedule up there, I'd like to propose for commercial development on that site. It's zone B2 now. And in order to provide for dedicated access for garbage pickup and for truck deliveries to separate it from the vehicle traffic. We would like to vacate a part of the wider right of way that's on Cedar Point. If you look at the map, you'll notice that as you come from the east to the west. Thank you. You'll notice, thanks. If you'll notice that this is an abnormal type of right of way where you have a curve and a big secured right of way. So you'll always have 66 feet as a minimum. The piece of where this just a sliver is the only piece we're asking to have vacated. And if you've been to the site, you'll notice that we're stopping just short of where the top part of the slope is, so we're not going out into the slope of the ditch or the right of way. We're staying on the top. So that sliver is what we're asking to be vacated to assist in being able to get back to this restaurant building here for the garbage pickup and the delivery trucks for food service, that sort of thing. But segregates it from having to deal with the people in here. And I know garbage comes early in the morning, but they're planning on doing some early stuff with the restaurant. And so that's the reason they're asking for it. And basically, because it is an extra wide right of way, that's really isn't needed for snow storage, isn't needed for the ditch slopes. That's why they're asking to vacate that sliver. If you have any other questions, there's more to this development at some point in time, but the first phase is what we're dealing with right now on the north end, which will be the restaurant building here and another commercial building over to the east of that. I think also in my cover letter, I'm sorry, in the application, I had a brief explanation of what we're going to do. And we have had some preliminary discussions with your city engineer, Joe Palin, regarding the vacation. Mr. Kathir has met with him. We didn't have any, so far, we haven't had any objections from the city engineer. He'll weigh in on this when we set a public hearing before that. So I have not personally spoken to Joe. There is a investment that runs just outside of where you vacate, where the proposed vacation is, and we plan on dedicating utility easement for that. And I think you can see it on this drawing, but it's right along this line here. We don't have to disturb the gas main cover at all, just providing easement.
How wide is that strip at its widest, Bill?
I'm sorry.
That strip on there, how wide is that at its widest that you're?
It'll allow us to have a two-way road system, which is 25 feet is your minimum. But we didn't want to make it, we could have narrowed it up, and getting trucks in and out of there is a kind of hardship, plus your ordinance when you have two-way traffic. It does narrow, as you can see here, it's really narrow at the beginning. The 25-foot pieces here, the rest is on site. So, and this road can also double someday for deliveries into the back of that commercial building if it needs to be.
See, it looks like it's a drive-through on that one end. Is that what that circle is?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So this will be a dedicated drive-through.
You guys
Where
look
you
that
can
up.
come in here and pick up and go back out again. And we didn't want to mix. That's another reason we like to have a separate road. We don't want to mix that traffic, oncoming traffic with garbage pickups and food deliveries.
Can you guys
Can you
look
guys
that up?
move
We
that? Yeah,
can't see
so
what we're
that-
talking about.
Yeah, did I not have the smaller version in your?
No,
I did.
I saw the
It's not
small
very good to
version,
see
but
what
it's
sideways, but it's there.
It's hard to see what all it was.
It's sideways, it's there.
Doesn't quite have the description. It's my copy.
I've got a larger map here.
Yeah.
It's same as that one, but it's.
It does go with, here.
Oh, this would be the piece of-
On this side, so gas can go and
Right.
kind of.
So the top of the slope is this black.
Is this- Does this have to?
So it's right, Castleville would be over
Gas-
here.
What is this gold line? Is it
No,
the?
it's, there's Biscuit Avenue, right here, Biscuit Avenue,
Oh, okay.
Just like that.
right there. Well, wait.
This is.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gas goes in this little spot right there.
yeah, so that's this spot there.
No,
So you've
gas-
got the
gas
service
goes- gas goes
road, and
down
then
here.
this is
This is the customer.
the customer
Right.
repair side.
Yeah.
This whole square,
So-
that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No, I
Got
I
it.
can't tell you the specific use of the shed, we don't.
So both properties would be built, but this is the one that we know the current use of, this is a future
Yes.
to determine yet.
You're gonna have to enlarge that pond.
Some point in time. This is the storm
So-
detention facility.
You're looking.
Right now, if you've driven out there, there's a hole in the ground
If
here.
you're going up,
That's what the stormwater detention is, but it's not. It's right in there. It's just something.
Oh, it's on this section.
So we're gonna enlarge it. There's two
Make it a
cells.
feature, throw some outdoor seating,
Okay.
make it a feature and throw the outdoor seating there.
So you have the patio over
So I
there.
can see that.
We got theirs, we got theirs. They have nice-
You beat Van.
That's what good use, right?
Yeah, so Tom has charged me with being a really nice looking pond.
And this is not gonna be contingent on approval or anything, but
No, no.
I'm just curious, what is your menu like?
Well, those two ladies there have been working on the menu, Diane and Lori.
Two sisters.
And they
Yes.
Awesome. Oh, very good.
I was gonna suggest that if we could
We
do
don't know
some
what kind of
introductions, that would be
I
helpful.
would love some
I
introduction.
mean, I mean.
And I just want you to
it's great.
understand
I love this
quality
idea of
control.
what we're building.
Those two are Tom's daughters. so-
Okay.
Sisters.
This is Bill Boynton, he's their
Yes, they are.
engineer.
Right?
Can still do it that way.
They're my kids.
Melhorn.
Lori?
Yep, and I'm Tom's,
Wendy.
Wendy, nice to meet you. I'm Tom's
No, that looks-
older daughter. Hi, I'm Diane Howard.
Diane,
Yeah,
very
my
good
number
to
is
meet you.
Nice
So
to
that's
meet
kick off for the rest of the
I like
development in that
Scottsdale.
area too.
Oh, no, I mean,
Yes,
that's what we were.
And then my two daughters.
Sort of finally come to life.
Yeah.
I've owned this since 2007.
Okay.
Oh, wow, we're just waiting for this thing to
I'm
get.
just waiting for this to come out.
He's been a couple times and tried
Lunch and dinner restaurant.
Yeah,
to
we,
improve it.
And this
Because
was,
it's
we're
sewer.
gonna.
Lack of sewer.
Yeah, no, this is good.
what's your timeline?
And
The
you said
timeline is
it's
we'd like
gonna
to start
be
moving
coffee bar
dirt
and-
this fall.
The grab and
Grab
go.
and go.
Grab and go in the
What
morning.
time does that?
Construction of the restaurant will take
Like
place
six,
over the
probably,
winter
yeah.
time
Okay.
and
Yeah, so your
springtime.
morning before
Hopefully
you,
be into it
yeah, you
sometime
wouldn't have to
next summer.
stop
Oh, wow.
further.
That'd be
Do
great.
it.
Is there,
Before you get
got the
That's
okay to get
wonderful.
the sewer hooked up to it?
Thank
A lot of people
you.
seem to be very excited.
There's also work going on over there today too.
Like shopping for
The
the.
municipal connection is right down here.
It's really hard to drive 5 miles to get.
And so that's where they were working
Right.
today.
Have a couple sits down before that.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
And like I
So
said,
that-
quality
that should be
control. I
available
have
this
all-
fall.
We'll call you.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll need a lot of that.
Hopefully it'll be-
Hi, I'm Diane Oslin. Oh, I'm Lori, I'm Tom's older daughter. Okay.
I'm
Lori,
Lori.
nice to meet Diane. Yeah, to meet you. I'm Lori. Hi.
Tom,
I said make sure your sisters.
We are, really are. We're only 15 months apart. We're kind of like twins. Yeah.
Irish twins, right?
Right. Right.
I'm one of those.
Irish twins.
That's terrific. I like the concept. I like this.
Yeah, it's gonna be really nice. It's a nice looking building.
And it's probably
A great service to Roanoke.
Yeah, and it's gonna be right there close to get off the freeway for people. You're gonna bring people in.
Yeah, yeah, for
This
sure.
is-
Did you explain the coffee? This is coffee and grab and go in the morning at 6 o'clock. It's on your way to town. Meetings, in case we lunch and dinner.
It'll be a true Minnesota restaurant. We're-
It's busier.
One of the section of the menu will be Minnesota hot dishes.
Oh, so in other words, you're-
No, what are you doing with the?
So in other words, you're gonna have
Oh, this is so-
this feed.
Somebody-
Oh, okay.
Right.
So-
You'll be able to get a flight of hot
Existing
dishes.
pond here.
Yeah.
So we're.
And then you can
move
get an
that
entree
pond
size or you
here.
can get a family
And
size.
so that we can use.
Then we have an outdoor patio.
Outdoor
Oh, that's gonna be great.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to.
Very family friendly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah, it'll be family oriented.
There you go.
Family restaurant.
So,
Well, it also has to be larger too.
Yeah, when we
So
built
this
the
is
gas
back
station in
behind
2013,
the
we determined what we're gonna use this for and
that was gonna be the
Gas.
layout, and then
Right,
now.
and
Ms.
so
Groves
we
changed
came
it,
in
Cause they want
this
it nicer.
But it's
Yeah,
nice
Molly.
on the other, so you've got this other
Everybody
area.
wants
that you're
nicer
gonna eventually
Right.
develop.
He's trying to put us on a
Another
budget.
building here.
Yes,
Future building.
yes, right, where is, but they're-
It's gonna be, yeah.
A little
It'll be a nice
more.
area.
Oh, yeah, it's right.
So that'll be my
A lot
question.
of this stuff almost from the dark like down to the.
Awesome.
side.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
That's where your quality control position will be.
Yeah, okay.
And Tom, I didn't get to meet you, but
Oh,
thank you for being in.
Tom
I'm
got you.
Wendy Phillips.
Wendy, nice
Good to meet you.
I'm Kathy.
Kathy.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Well, unless there's other questions, I'm gonna
I've got a quick question and I'm assuming, so right along here is the main drag and looking at our main drag as far as Orinoco goes, our busy street, so Minnesota Avenue South. And just off that will be the retention pond and the restaurant and the other future building. The gas station is over
The south of the boundary.
Right.
this corner here, making sure I'm following that right. So assuming this is going to be an extremely busy roaring success. My question is, on this one section though, where we're looking to vacate some of that, I'd have to drive out and look at how steep this is. But I do think about things like, I know with the Casey's on the side of town, we did have to add the turning lanes at one point, the county came in and it gets busy, so I just wanna know, is there still enough room along there in the future, should we need to add turning lanes on that side?
I think they'll come in on that
That-
side.
And I don't need the answer today, but I
Yes,
just,
there is.
that would just be my biggest question, is to make sure that we've got space, so we don't have somebody trying to turn left into this road and then get rear-ended, because there's no way to pass around.
So from the edge of the pavement, it's point to where we're working is 72 feet. So you have, if you put a 12-foot right turn, or left, I'm sorry, 12-foot left turn lane in there, you have plenty of room. Then to grade it out.
Yeah, especially if we're gonna
To do that.
have service trucks and different things going up and down to
That's a
keep
good-
restocking the caffeine that we all,
That we all will desperately be
Yes.
craving in the morning.
that's probably one of the questions I had that,
There
I
is
probably
sufficient
just-
room in it.
yeah, I probably just put that in when you do come forward with everything.
And it is helpful to that it actually makes a circle, right?
Yes, it does.
Kind of you turn in up here, but you can exit down by Casey's.
Right.
So,
So there's gonna be
Yeah,
activity
amplify
between
wherever
your station and here, so there's another. So you don't see that on this plan yet, because we haven't got the design done, that part of it, but someday. When the other businesses go in, there'll be the connectivity here. This road will. So then,
Okay,
or they can go south.
So then later we'll see a plan, shows like trees and
Yeah.
things like that.
Mhm. Yes, this is our kind of our, what I call the phase one plan that they have, and then we have phase two. Maybe even three, just depending on one or two buildings on the south there.
Yeah. no, I do like to see where you've got kind of the redundancy, where multiple exits, where you're not all constrained and bottlenecked at one spot.
Correct, yeah.
Or if you're gonna have large trucks coming through that, it's not a narrow without a turning lane or a passing lane, so. Reduces the chance of people getting rear-ended.
Someday it could be developed on the other side of that drive.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that road is going to be wide enough to handle all that.
and I will say that when we started talking about this, we just weren't able to provide adequate time for a public hearing. Thus, this presentation tonight as an introductory kind of thing, and that with the expectation that you'll set a public hearing for the next meeting on the vacation application. And again, that's not so exciting, but it leads to really exciting outcomes down the road.
I'd like to ask a question. Has there been a conversation about whether the 0.16 acres that is the topic of being vacated, is that being given to the project? Is that being paid for to the city for the release of that land? How is that working?
There has not been a conversation about that. They I guess that's probably a discussion point for this group and for
City council.
city council as well. But I will say too, that this, unlike other vacations that would go to perhaps private parties, this one is going for a commercial.
Right, and so it would be
Application, it's a little
generated
bit
as
different.
part of tax base.
Absolutely. And not just, as we've discussed, not just this initial venture, but subsequent ones as well. So,
At different locations or expanding on this one or both?
Yeah.
Both?
yeah,
And
Well, yeah, because you're seeing two
I
potential
know this is
buildings
gonna
right
be
now.
another building.
Right, and then there's more opportunity further that's not in the initial plans right now.
Is
Well,
this,
across the road
That's
is
gonna be where
different.
it's at.
is this property over here? You probably can't.
That whole piece
This is all
theirs.
owned by you as well? Very good.
He owns quite a bit on both sides of that road, north, east and west of that road.
The plan is to bring more businesses that the Orinoco community want.
Mm-hmm.
to that property.
Great idea.
You're right, it's very
Did
exciting.
you all get to see the floor plans and stuff? I'll need those
Did-
No, I
copies
didn't
back.
see that. You have the small drawing.
I will send these over your way. Did anybody need to see this map?
I think that's the same one that's over.
I think so.
And he said I could keep that one as
You get to
well,
keep
so-
this one, and I'll fold it very nicely.
Thank you very much.
Like the name.
What is the name?
Two sisters.
Apropos.
I know.
don't you think?
I love it.
Yeah.
Intentionally. Pass it out.
So are there any other questions at this time? Is that to them?
No, I just think we just set a public hearing for next
Yes.
month and let everybody weigh in on it, the
Jim?
way they need to weigh in on it.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have a time you want to set that? Our meeting's at 6:30, 6:35, maybe?
Well, yeah.
Six.
Is there a motion to set the public hearing for, it would be August 10 at 6:35 PM?
Right, at 6:35, we get an approve our agenda, roll call and agenda, and you wanted,
6:40.
and you permanently wanted to move the minutes forward. right?
You're setting it for no sooner than 6:35.
Gotcha.
So whether we do it after that is gonna be
Yeah, make a motion, set it for 6:35.
set for August 10. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to set this public hearing for August 10 at 6:35 PM. Is there any further discussion? And if not, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of setting this public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The public hearing for Cedar Point Partners LLC, application for street ROW vacation is set for August 10 at 6:35 PM.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice. Very good, very good.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your plans with us.
Exciting, yeah.
Well, the interior, the pictures you have, very beautiful.
Yeah, those are final designs for our room board, but they'll be close to.
We're excited. I think this is exactly what we need. This is awesome.
It is
Oh,
time.
it is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Look forward to
Nice to
seeing
meet
you
you.
again.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
You just didn't know we could make it twice that easy.
What's that?
I didn't know we could make it twice that easy.
It is exciting.
Everyone left.
That is exciting. All right. So moving right along. We are at item number 7, financial reports. Yeah, everybody, I hope you had your caffeine before you came in and.
I had my caffeine this morning.
So here we go. So we have number 1, budget comparison. And Sunny, this is your wheelhouse, so you are on.
All right,
Page 20.
25. Do you like the numbered pages?
It's
Really
very
like-
helpful. It's very helpful, thank you. Especially when I've got it all torn up on my kitchen table and I'm going through all of it, it helps me to put it all back together, so.
So 25, page 25 is comparison this year to last year. And again, due to coding issues, much of the reimbursable engineering fees get dumped into just that one line item, which happens to fall under planning and zoning's department. I think it's goofy, I wanna fix it, and we'll get there.
Well, that was the software that we talked about, right? Have you and Renee, I know she's getting married and.
Well, she was out a week, back a week, out a week, now she's been back this week, and so trying to really, but we have talked about it, that we need to sit down, go through them and determine which one is, you know, and I'm going to rely heavily on her. Because she's expressed an interest in taking the accounting and finance path rather than city clerk duties. Although they're just crossover, but I want her to be able to find a program or use a program that's going to work for her. And at this point, after Tyler Tech, quite frankly, anything will do, but yeah, we did talk about that as well.
Okay, good. Because I know that until you guys have that, and I know it's not just something you can snap your fingers and it's done. Because even once you figure out what system you want, it's gonna be a process until we have all of this broken out into the categories that they belong, right? So that we would have a really good feel for the budget, because you look at the budget right now, it's like, yikes,
Yikes,
planning and zoning.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that it's skewed largely by that 115,000 plus in that account 42304. So if that were taken out, then it's, you know, you'd probably be at about 50% of your budget, which is, you know, 6 months is reasonable.
Yeah, do we have a whole lot of outstanding bills from Stantec and other, you know, organizations that bill us? Or are we somewhat caught up? And I mean, if there's just minimal amounts that are kind of outstanding, or are there big chunks that are outstanding, do you have a feel for that?
The biggest ones from Stantec that are related to the wastewater treatment plant, those are in a totally separate fund. And my concern is that some of those that should have gone to the other fund are still embedded in here, that we would need to do some adjustments for.
Some forensic
Yep,
investigation to
my favorite journal entries.
get everything in the right place.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it looks like the Stantec stuff is in through, actually June, the stuff that's in there. For the deductions on page 28. You're looking at the Stantec part of that, and it's in there through, June 29th. So even though it might not be up to what this is, it looks like it's up to date on what they're billing us for.
and that's gonna be, that date is going to be a paid date
Oh,
when it
okay.
was posted. So that likely is just through, I'm gonna say, May.
But fairly close, at least, where we're not going
Yeah.
back a lot of
Oh,
months.
yeah. I mean, one thing I have appreciated from our consultants is that I have gotten them to within 30 days. We're not doing this 45, 60 day.
Well, that's good to
billing
know,
kind of
because
thing.
I know you
So-
were really kind of struggling with that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. That is a big step in the right direction.
And they know I'm watching every hill, so yeah. So from page 25, page 26, that is just, 26 is just this year. And I double underline so you can see how those numbers carry over.
Sonia,
Go ahead.
sorry,
No.
you finish. I got a question after this about some expenditures.
Okay, and then starting on pages 27, 28, and 29, that is the detail. And because we're at 6 months, I wanted to be able to provide you all of those so that as we start talking about what you want your budget to look like next year, we have some fairly accurate numbers, and if anything, you know, jumps out that's not going to be coded correctly, then we need to move it. For example, I'm gonna point to page 28. At the, you know, 3/4 of the way down, there's an account set up for SEH, which is Short Elliott and
Hendrickson.
thank you. Another engineering firm that has been engaged for the Zumbro Regional Water Trail, yada, yada, yada. And in my view, and here again, I don't understand why this was set up, other than it's kind of tied with engineering, so they put them together and stuck it under planning and zoning, where that really is more applicable to parks and trails, and so should have been coded to that department as well.
All of these entries in this one category?
Yeah, the
Okay.
SVH, yeah.
Yes.
But you got a plus too that comes from Goodhue County off of that for many
Yes,
thousands.
and that is an anomaly and a miscode, because you shouldn't be crediting, you know, revenues to an expense account unless they're specifically, I got a refund against this
Right.
specific invoice.
Right.
And they should be very, very minimal. So, when I talk about some of those things that need to be fixed, that one jumped out at me as well, so. So there are things to fix for sure.
What is the correction for that?
New accounting software.
And I'm working to, even until that happens, to really look at what's going into our revenue accounts and adjust or create the proper departmental codes so that, for example, the application fees for the items, the business that you review should be offsetting the expenditures. All the expenditures are here, but you're not seeing the application fees. to
Those are going
offset
into
some
a
of that.
different department.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, they're just going into general.
Right.
Going into 100, right?
Yeah. They're all just,
They're going into
100.
Everything's just dumping into one big
Yeah, pots.
barrel.
Where's,
Okay.
where's the city council on replacing the software right at the moment?
They're working on it right now, so.
I have to bring a recommendation. to
Yeah,
them.
they need to figure out which system they think they really,
I just wanna see them go out by the cheapest new software, the old stuff, they
Right.
don't, the oldest to the new that don't work with it.
No.
2 months.
No,
So what's the time frame on that one? Cause you've got council coming up in the next week or two, but I know there's been a wedding in there. Are we thinking you guys will have something at council?
Did they?
The
Yeah.
wedding's over, yeah.
7/7, so she was back this week, and then,
But I know you've been doing demos and a bunch of other things before that, so.
yeah, so it's a matter of really just sitting down and talking our way through it, and then looking at the numbers. Cause some have a little, I know one program has they call like a resident kiosk or whatever, that for utilities and such, they can actually go in and check out their own balance. as opposed to having. So some of those kind of things that are nice and expanded on the program. But, you know, my focus is really on the financial piece, because that's where I am, but it's nice to get to that point too. The other thing is, I don't want it to become so impersonal that people don't feel the need to have to contact City Hall, because we are here to serve. And part of that is fielding those kind of, what's my balance, or kind of things. So, and I will say, to Mary's credit, she is excellent on the phone and in person and dealing with those kind of questions. So it's kind of all those things that we need to talk through.
And I think a lot of it is too, because we're going in with the water and sewer, we're gonna have so much more of a demand that's
Right.
put on our system.
Correct.
That right now, the system, I don't think can handle it and do it simply, okay?
Well,
Or-
it's definitely not gonna get less complicated as
Gonna
we
get
move
more
forward from
complicated.
this point in time. And so I'm wondering, and I don't suggest this to put pressure or anything like that. This is what I have to do to myself. I have to give myself a deadline to have a decision made, and I have to have it written in my calendar. Otherwise, other things are always popping up, and I feel like I'm putting out fires as opposed to, you know, I'm reacting rather than doing the things that absolutely deserve to be completed. And so if I could, you know, make that request without applying too much pressure, because that's not what I want to do. But for whatever reason, for me, I absolutely have to create deadlines for myself. And then I have to share them with somebody that I know will hold me accountable. And that's how I function best, is I make a decision, then I tell somebody and I go, hold me accountable to this. Otherwise, I can let things go really easily. So,
Which speaks to why the RFP is still on the agenda, because I want you to know I have not forgotten about it. But I'm gonna tell you that the RFQ and price proposal document that needed to be developed for the wastewater treatment plant, for operations, maintenance, and management of that whole thing, because we have no one licensed. And we need to bring that online. That really was taking a number one spot. And even though that project has experienced some setbacks and stuff, that doesn't, it made some adjustments necessary in the document, but by and large, it was necessary to do that. And I'm trying to remember how many pages that thing was. And then the engineer had set up a temporary file sharing. And I think he had 17, 18, 19 documents in there that I don't know how many more pages were in there. And this is a big project, and it's going to be revenue producing, so we need to get that. And that doesn't minimize how badly I feel that the RFP has taken so long. But I have great faith in this group, and we've been able to make our way through it with some spot adjustments as necessary. And speaking to that, at the water and sewer meeting Tuesday night, another task was delegated to this group. For the water and sewer utility pieces, we need to look at those two and make them align so that it's going to be 12 months from date of notice that we give them that they have to hook up.
So is that gonna be on
Yes.
next month? We're gonna put it in for the P and Z. I think I shared that with you, Wendy, okay, on what that was for those. And I think that that's a proper timeline as well. I think we're moving the right way with what's moving with that. So instead of being 24, I think 12 is the correct way to do that. So
I do too, from a cash flow standpoint, we really need to do that. And as the Water and Sewer Committee indicated, not everybody's going on and getting the same date. So they, you know, it's,
Depends on
but
the
it's,
date that
it's
it's
gonna be
being hooked up.
rolling.
It'll be staggered,
because of-
yeah.
Of when it becomes available and such. I digress, but you had a question.
Yeah, so what, and this is, it's about fees, that comes to mind. What was the couple that wanted to expand their garage?
Well, the ones that were over,
AJ,
Yeah. So the fees, are we gonna recoup those fees for the planning for Phil's time? Do we recoup it? Or do we lose it? Cause that was
We've
a
already
big
lost it.
expense.
Right.
Yeah,
Planning
they
and
canceled
zoning
the check.
usually never washes, you never get the full.
Yeah, it's not
feedback.
a wash.
It doesn't-
No.
because there was a bounce
No.
check and there were other things
Planning
that
and
were
zoning
associated
is
with that.
here to basically help with the controlled growth and development of our communities, so it's a success. Not for us today, but for 3 generations from now, because you're not gonna move a whole subdivision in 100 years. Whatever we're
No.
doing here is where it's probably gonna stay. But with that, those fees, any fees that do get collected are supposed to show up in a budget, so you can say this came in for zoning and it was expended out for zoning. There's
Right.
So
some
we could
pieces.
actually know how much is going out, because we're not a
You know,
money-making entity.
No, are
We're
we
not
covering
even a break-
20% of it?
yeah,
Are we
exactly.
covering
Right.
10%?
And that
No.
helps us to plan our budgets going forward as
Right.
well.
And what we're gonna do for fee schedules for next year. What needs to be done to make sure that we're recouping as much as we possibly can that comes off of it, so it's not being put on the city.
Well, and there's other pieces that we don't currently have that we could incorporate, where we've talked about sending people out to inspect where are we at right now in conditional use permits. A lot of towns will and cities will put it right in their fee schedule that you have inspection fees.
Mhm.
And if we have to send people out because you haven't completed stuff, we're gonna charge it for it. So there's,
Yeah,
those
you
are the
don't have
kinds of
trees
things.
planted, or you don't have something done that was part of a variance,
Well, that's just an accountability measure that we
Right.
need to have in place.
right?
Especially with things growing, with what we're gonna be doing, you know.
Yeah,
have
and
to
to put
realize
it in
we're-
place now.
Yeah.
Is definitely
Well, no.
recommended, as opposed to when we've already grown by another whatever percentage.
Which is where it really becomes important to get this RFP going and the
Mhm.
deadline, and we talked about dates, because we do have to have this stuff done and get chunks of it through before we come online with water and sewer.
Absolutely.
So if that's, you know, we're looking at 12 months out, we've got to be moving even a little quicker on our side here.
Yeah, we gotta be ahead of the 8 ball instead of behind it.
So,
That's kind of the concern about making sure we get the software in place.
right, so
That's
if
gonna take-
there.
That's gonna
So you put
take
the-
time. to get
There's
that
always
out
gonna
there.
be things that are coming up with accounting, there's always gonna be things that are coming up with the city, and who knows what else is gonna happen, but. You know, I know we've talked about it before, but if we need to help you write that RFP or help you with some of that, let us know, cause we can take that on too.
I'm glad you had asked that
Because
because,
I've thrown
you
that
do
out there
have-
before.
yeah, you do have copies of it and you know the red parts, those are where, so, yeah, if you wanna take a look at that, that would be awesome,
Yes,
yes.
Do you wanna get together and look at that?
yes,
Yeah.
we will take that on if anybody, yes. And what we'll do is we'll draft that up and have that on the agenda for next month's meeting so that we
Great.
can get everybody to look at that, see if there's any changes, and we can get that thing posted and out.
Yeah.
Because some of the other things I've got coming really depend on us having a vendor in place, because we need to get some of this moving.
Right.
So 12-month notice, we're gonna be. if
We're
we
gonna be
can-
jamming,
Yep,
especially with getting software online and,
Well,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's good, you know.
because I
have
think you
software,
guys do need to
put things on the
focus on
calendar and people are-
that stuff, that
to say,
we
okay,
can't
this
help you with the
has
budget
to
stuff,
happen.
that's gotta be on you guys, but we can help on this other
I'm
stuff.
glad you didn't mention that.
That I will
Yes.
tell you. And this all brings up things that people are talking about. Someone asked me this weekend. If I wanted to put together a boat storage. And just do a gravel lot. And put a boat storage in, like, no, you can't. You can't just do it, you know, and you know what? I got back out of that. Well, there's a gravel lot right across from Casey's. You guys are allowing that. Like, well, we're not allowing that.
There's also one over at Thompson's too that
Yes.
needs to be addressed, that
Yes.
taken care of.
Although, did I see some somewhere?
Across from Casey's right there.
Nothing in Thompson's,
Thompson's.
Behind, they're doing storage.
and that should have been done a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
okay?
before my time.
Well, before
Yeah,
mine too,
yeah.
but it's gotta be done, otherwise we can't kick the can down there, so.
Yeah.
One other thing I will say that we do implement, and this was before I came to, they purchased a software program to help with the permit issuing and following up on conditional use permits and that sort of thing. But I'm gonna say too, you remember last year, there was a gap in time and Renee got dumped on to really get a bunch of stuff done. And so one of the things this year, and even a little bit last year, but this year I've really encouraged her. One, because the comp time is adding up, but I want her to be able to use time that was not available to her to do last year. So that has come into play as well, but we know that we're not utilizing that iWorks program to its capacity either. So that's one of the things that we're encouraging Mary to take on and be able to kind of up that too. So it's all those things all come together, but thank you both for doing that. And I tried to narrow it down to really the red parts that need to be done.
I will say, the good thing about this development is they were supposed to put trees in front of Gasco, so maybe they have to put that in their plan. So there was supposed to be a row of trees,
Mhm.
and that was part of.
If that was a condition, then
That was
they
a
should.
condition. They
Oh,
were
then
supposed to put a
that's-
row of trees and they.
Yeah,
did not.
and a lot of that stuff is in the blueprints that were given to us, but to find those, to pull them back out, to follow up on that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that quarter that we're gonna be opening up now with that coming into the city,
So what
we wanna be looking at
As we
those.
get into the iWorks program, probably our best recourse there is as Mary or whoever is working through this backlog, getting it into the system. We get it loaded in there and then we have somebody audit it, basically one of us or our chair or somebody could audit and we'll do here's what the permit, is that what it is? And yes, it's good. Here's what it is that what it is? Nope.
And I,
Then we can just send out a letter saying we've audited through our new software. It looks like there are some conditions outstanding and set a date.
yeah,
that's
and I
so-
can do some of that stuff. to be
That would
checking
be-
things out,
That
so.
would be wonderful.
Cause I've got the
I've done
time,
that to you.
okay, well, I've got the time to do it, so I mean, that's a part of what there is, I mean, and I think that's a part we've been missing. For the city,
So if
and the
we've
more
got the
people are
software,
investing, if they
let's
know
use
that
it.
everybody's gonna be following up.
Yeah.
They're gonna do it the right way.
Right, so I'm glad to hear that Mary might be working with that iWorks program, so.
Okay, and now just to regroup here a little bit, we were talking about budget. We skipped out of budget through software upgrade conversation into the old business of the
Wow.
RFP.
We missed the
And
new business.
And we skipped right over new business, so poor Colleen, her little fingers there's like smoke coming off of her keyboard over here.
Sorry, Colleen.
Because she's just jamming to keep up. So we are going to, we've already handled items 7 and 9. Now we're backtracking to item 8, new business. And we're gonna be talking about the future land use plan.
And
So-
also, we wanna
There's
talk
something
about the
else that-
marijuana situation too.
Well, that is on here right after this.
Oh, I
So-
done first, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
could just finish up, did we answer your question
For the budget,
on the
Oh,
finance
on,
piece?
are we gonna get that back? Are we gonna recoup? I guess
Okay.
my understanding is no, we're not.
Well, here's the deal.
So what are we talking about now?
This is the money from the.
He just wanted to know what my question
Oh,
is.
from the.
AJ.
The expand.
Right, got it.
The answer is, as you know, they stopped payment on it. That's $250. And they got that application in just before the fees went up to $300. So, and then, there's a $30 fee for
Return check.
so $280. I did have a conversation with him just the other day, must have been Tuesday. And I asked him what he thought he was gonna do about that. Because we understand that the fees are not intended to cover all of our costs. We know there's a gap, and I thanked him for being helpful in facilitating that change, not only for himself, but for others in the city. That's good, but I don't think that is sufficient to make his participation go away. He offered $30 to cover the check, and I suggested that he go home and talk with Jenna. I said, I would be willing to settle on $100 inclusive, just to let it go. But still have him pay something for that effort that all of us went through on his behalf. So have not heard back. But I'm
How long
trying
ago-
to not let it.
How
go
long
up.
ago was it that you made that offer of the $100 and,
Tuesday,
okay.
2 weeks.
No.
Tuesday, just 2 days ago. And he's got that building permit in.
we
So
can-
Wednesday, he went down to CMS to see where his building permit was. And it's sitting with Sonny.
We can
So-
hold it
Sitting with-
and we'll just get the money, yeah. I mean, that's a way
Right.
to do it, is just to hold off and say, okay.
We'll hold it until we get paid.
Yeah.
Because the building permit doesn't have any timeframes attached to it, right? Variances, you get 60 days, and yeah, you get an extension for that, but
Isn't
I
building
just-
within 12 months? You have to build within 12 months?
Yeah, but she's talking.
But she still got
it
it, so.
it hasn't been
Oh, yeah, I
issued.
saw, yes,
So
yes,
she
yeah,
still got it, so,
absolutely. Okay.
okay, so I'd hold on to that
Yep.
and say, okay, you know, hey.
And so
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we would be talking about is the $100 for the
Or-
last,
Or
for the
more.
last transaction, plus the new application fee. Got it.
Okay.
That's fair.
It is.
So that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Question for, one last question. Do we have anything posted at the front there that says, if you write us a payment for any reason and we get a fee because it goes NSF or you stop it, that we will collect? I'm just thinking all the other places I go shopping, I'll have that notice. You go through a drive-through, you're gonna see those little signs.
Stop check fee.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea.
yeah, it could just be a
post
little
there.
tiny plaque that you stick right there on your window
Probably
between
just
the.
help cover us as a city and then it's
Mhm.
extremely clear.
It's
and
on our fee schedule,
that-
yeah, it's online, but whether or
I
not
would-
they recognize
I
that.
would say we would post one publicly and then there's no question anymore going forward.
Well, and not only that, but and what if it were just a little blurb on the application that they're signing as well?
Yeah.
Because then their signature is on a piece of paper that has that statement baked in. That
Makes
might
good
be worth adding a one-liner
Well,
to our application.
I had a line at the bottom that has a disclosure on it, so it's a second signature on there. You're agreeing to the user agreement, just like you do it in software. You have to agree to the user software agreement. You know?
I just know that there's probably a state statute on that. That's my best guess.
There's just, so many things.
What's that?
There are so many things.
Oh, I know.
I do have on my to-do list, and I know we had talked about more training and more education, but to actually walk us through what the blank applications are that people complete, so we understand what each section covers.
Mhm.
And along with that, maybe we look at that section and maybe we give you some recommendations.
Yeah.
For that.
One thing we have done is eliminated the fees off every application. And it just says per the fee schedule, because I don't wanna be having staff, yeah.
No,
No, and
Do
if
the
that's what they're
schedule once a
completing,
year
that's
and
what they
that's
have
it.
to hold us to. So,
I think that.
If it
Unless
gets
they
visited.
contact the chair.
If it gets visited once a
Yeah.
year.
Right.
so,
I'm gonna refer them back to the city administrator.
so
I love my job.
Are we gonna talk about pot first, or are we gonna talk about future land? use?
what do you wanna do? What,
Well, I can help you. I
Bring a roach clip?
what's gonna be more fun?
Hey, I was the one that was up in Duluth listening to all the stuff that was going on with that, so I've got the most recent.
You
Excellent.
are go-to person.
I'm
I thought
excited
you were talking about recreational marijuana first, is that
Let's do
what?
the fun one first, yeah. Here, I did throw together, just a quick blurb. I did a little digging on it.
Oh, do you want me to pass
They're
these?
Yeah,
they're changing
pass
stuff
them.
all the time. I'll guarantee you
Oh,
that,
yeah.
you know, for what LMC is doing.
So the law that got passed is over 300 pages long.
And 200 people in the department.
And it went from a couple years ago, 3 people to however many employees it's gonna be, but. So I did throw together, a proposal just for us to have something to talk about. There's a lot of towns out there that are looking at changing and or temporary moratoriums, and the state law that was passed does allow small towns to do a temporary interim moratorium with a maximum expiration date of January of 2025. So by 2025, what's supposed to happen is Minnesota department that they've got coming online starting August 1st is gonna start putting together and hiring people and putting their procedures together. But what'll happen is this new Office of Cannabis Management will start issuing licenses in 2025 for recreational use.
Yeah, so, which is true. Okay, now you go into some of the other stuff that's gonna be happening. So you're looking at a population situation that's involved with the number of licenses that are put out, and it goes along with the counties. And so with that, if you're not at least 12,500 for a population, you don't qualify for even getting a license of what there is. So that's
So you don't qualify for a dispensary in your city, is that what you're
exactly,
saying?
exactly.
Well, from what I was looking, so the 12,500. Local governments can place a limit of 1 retail dispensary for every 12,500 residents. But we can't outright ban them, and we could still have 1. We could still have,
Well, and I'm with,
Yeah.
but I'm just going with what they said, because they went over it and it was really a good session. This session was packed.
oh, I'm sure.
I mean, everybody was trying to figure out
The
what's
fun
going on,
session.
so. So the thing that was interesting is, of course, it's starting 8/1, August 1st, it's legal in Minnesota. Okay, and then they turn around, starting August 1st, you can grow 8 plants per household. Okay, and you can only have half of them that are producing flower and the other half aren't. So that comes into effect August 1st. And with that, you're allowed to have 2 pounds of pot per person, per family, whatever, as long as you're doing that. So that's the way the law was written. They were trying to do it for 5 pounds and somebody came in with 5 pounds of pot and dropped it, and said, okay, guys, this is what you really want to have. Okay, and I mean, it was kind of interesting. So the other thing is, if a person has 2 ounces on them as a person, okay, in public, it's legal, 2 ounces or less. The other thing that there was is they had 800 milligrams of edibles. And so what happened was they didn't know how to regulate the edibles when they started doing it last year. And so then you start getting into municipal liquor stores and okay. Can you dispense pot or edibles in a municipal liquor store that's owned by a city? And they were trying to do it through vending machine. I mean, this got to be just a crazy discussion of what was
So the-
really good.
Law does have a carve out that if we could, small towns do have the ability to have a municipal recreational option.
So, but with the rest of it,
Yeah.
it goes to state, city ordinance and then the cities or whatever you want to have for your zoning codes is how they're gonna watch it as they go down through, but to turn around and to get a license is not as easy as what people think that it is to try to do it. They're gonna try to regulate it pretty good, what was going on. So again, it was like, okay, so population of 24,000 gets one license. 25 to 37, 550 gets two. 37, 550 to 49,000 can get three licenses. So that was a breakdown that they had. That they told us about, that was going on. So again, this is still, it's a moving picture because they're trying to figure out how to do it, even though we're the 23rd state. That's approving medical marijuana. But like I said, it was. Right, so it was really an interesting, group that was there. There were a lot of questions that were asked, so.
I have a question. We're talking about recreational use, we're talking about all of the licensing and all of this stuff. I'm not seeing where the Planning and Zoning Commission fits into that conversation. It
Let
seems
me-
like to
Well, they
me,
do.
it would be more of
They-
a city council conversation.
No, it
I've
it
got-
is.
No,
There's
It's a
two
thousand,
pieces.
a
I've got.
thousand feet.
And so if you
there is
could
from the
enlighten
school.
me,
Yeah, let me,
because
I'll address that here.
Mhm.
So I did do some digging. I've actually read some of those 300 pages of the actual law. I've also done some digging out on the League of Minnesota Cities. And what is happening is they are going to have to, so licenses, when they do start getting issued, are going to be getting issued by the state.
Mhm.
But what's going to happen is the state is going to turn around and contact the city to make sure that they are registered in the city and that they're basically following any zoning ordinances that we might have in place. So it does say in the law itself. Yep,
reasonable restrictions.
Yep, planning and zoning in the law, we basically are able to adopt reasonable restrictions on the time, place, and manner of the operation of the cannabis business. But we cannot, counties cannot outright ban retail stores. So we can't put a ban on it. We can put a temporary moratorium. The law lets us do that till 2025.
Right,
And then they even, whereas we can prohibit, for example, we could put in our code that you can't put a location where it's selling recreational marijuana within 1,000 feet of a school
right,
or 500 feet of a daycare
right, that's exactly
or
those are
next
two.
to a public park.
That was what my next question was, what
Yeah.
about
And so
parks?
it also covered, so that's where, as a zoning commission, we can update our code. So the state's gonna step in and they're gonna do their thing. That's done. But when somebody comes with and requests a license, the city's gonna get notified and Sunny in this office they're gonna pull out our code and look through what do we have on the books at that point.
Okay, and
So we better have something on the
And
books.
so we
with-
want to probably
Right.
have something on the books, so it doesn't go in next to a daycare or a church or wherever.
And I think that that's important for us to do
So-
without a doubt, for the moratorium to put that in right away, so we
The
get
ci-
it through.
Right, the other
2025.
things that are in the law that the city cannot put a tax on it. It's all gonna be state tax, and what's gonna happen is the
And
towns that
so-
have the places split up the tax money. There's a formula, whatever it is, so that's not even an option for the city council. The other pieces that this is beyond a little bit of beyond zoning, but we can do within zoning, put it into our ordinance. But there's other changes that they recommend the city's gonna wanna consider for public safety potentially. Also for how your employment, your risk, your insurance, how we pay for insurance. So there's a lot of other fun that's gonna come with
Pay
this.
the insurance costs of that.
And what's gonna happen is the way it's written, a lot of this is done at that one little department they created at the state, and everything else is getting dumped on the city level.
And how many people are in that little department? Was it
They don't have it.
400?
Well, they're still working on that, so that's, yeah, there you go.
To be determined.
Yeah, cause I mean, they were pulling this stuff together and it's like, this is all we have
Yeah.
right now.
But
And
it's-
so, and it's fluid of what they're doing. And they said there's gonna be changes that are going. Oh, it was an interesting meeting,
So
it really was.
here is what it says. So is our city required to adopt regulations under the new law? This is what I got from the League of Minnesota Cities. And it said, cities are not required to adopt any new regulations. However, they will be required to register retail sellers and perform compliance checks. So that goes back to, we want to get some stuff into our zoning side because that's where they've said you want to put this here.
Compliance checks. Now, that's interesting because they could charge, the city could charge a $5,000 fee for a compliance check.
Well, there's a limit in the law. Go to the 300 pages and it'll tell us what our limits are. for
Oh, okay.
fees. Yes.
I know,
Yeah.
this is all good and happy, whatever.
But
Happy
for
you're right.
tonight, what I'm asking or what I'm thinking we should do is,
But
and
what-
I did put a little blurb, if you look at the top of your page, just some language so we have something to work from, but just a temporary interim moratorium prohibiting the sale, manufacturing or distribution of cannabis while further study is conducted with the moratorium to expire January 1st, 2025. Or we could, and I put down optional, or we want to have it expire at the time a final ordinance is adopted, whichever comes first. So
You know,
it's either gonna expire
I think-
2025, or if we get our stuff written, when that new one goes in, then it goes.
I
Is that a
think-
zoning?
I think
This
that this
isn't
is
the
good.
zoning one, is it?
It would be a-
Moratorium would
A
be.
moratorium could be a zoning,
It could
yes.
be a zoning.
It's because we're
Okay.
saying prohibiting.
well, I think if you're gonna put a moratorium on it, just outright, right now, it is illegal for any of the cannabis places to funnel any of their money through the banking system.
Well,
Everything,
that's,
no, just a second. Everything is cash. So if you put a moratorium on it, you put a moratorium on it until the federal government approves the cash
Yes
or
and
private
no.
banking sales. Pardon?
Yes and no.
No, not yes, no, they cannot use
I work
banking.
at a bank and that's one of the things, there's a whole memo and there's a whole bunch of other stuff, so
So they're
there's.
approved to use it through the federal
It's
banking system?
illegal federally, it's still a controlled substance.
Exactly, so it can't be used federally in the banking.
Yes and no. That's more than we're even gonna get into.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
that's what,
But
that's what the cartels.
But for today, so what's going on right now within the state is there is a number of towns that are already proposing moratoriums. All of the ones I've found so far, except for one, Hopkins is a 90-day. Because they're gonna get their code written and get it out in 90 days apparently. Or they'll extend their moratorium, one or the other. But all the other ones I'm finding so far are actually looking at a moratorium till that 2025 date. Pine Island's got a public hearing scheduled for July 18th already. Rochester had a proposal that came out on July 6th. Chatfield is learning more about the law. Fillmore County is actually passed countywide licensure issue in effect until 2025. West St. Paul has a moratorium that they looked at Monday this week. Mankato, they passed one in May. So it's not saying we're not gonna allow it. It's not saying we're gonna allow it. It's just saying we need time to study this because we know we've got some code changes that we have to do one way or the other. And we don't know where our community sits on this and we want to respect what they're doing. But in the meantime, we should do something in
I
place.
agree with what this says, okay, and I think we should bring this and vote on this for the moratorium, just to put it in place for now till 2025, but again, the thing that there is, this will be for licensing and that it's not gonna be for the growing, so you're gonna have a situation that's gonna happen in town. And they said, just beware of it, that you're gonna be smelling stuff that's gonna be going around in town.
It's
No,
already
no,
being
no,
reported.
Well, no, that's smoking, I'm talking about growing.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna be smelling it with
Oh, it
growing.
stinks growing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
with
grew up on a
growing,
farm and I guess I never smelled.
They're growing it, where?
the interesting thing though, if somebody does
That was
grow,
hemp, which is different.
so if you want to go into the 300 pages, if
Something
somebody
so
does
green.
choose to grow, it has to be in an enclosed locked space only.
Well, they
So-
said that they can do it, again, they went with the number of plants and they said people are gonna be
Up to
doing it.
8 for
yeah.
flowering.
Right, 4 and 4, but it's gonna be done, he said people are gonna see it outside and be aware of what's going on with that, so.
So
So what do you pluck the ones to, I mean, like, if you had 5? that were
Well,
flowering, do you like? just-
You get difference between male and female, you get
Is
into
that what
all
it
kinds
is?
of
Is
stuff
that
that
what it
goes
is?
along with it, so.
Are you sure they're not transplants?
Gonna have people out high ground.
yeah.
You've transplanted tomatoes.
So if
I'm
this is-
retired, he volunteered.
the moratorium, and you're totally right, only covers the commercial aspect of it.
Absolutely,
August first, people can go buy seeds and have a lovely locked up enclosed garden in their homes or wherever they have it.
But it
When
could be
they say
outside or
enclosed and
whatever.
locked, it could be a greenhouse too, couldn't
Yeah,
it?
oh,
If
yeah,
it's locked,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But correct me if I'm wrong.
But that's beyond what we have the
Yeah, we
ability
can't
to
do anything with
regulate.
that.
That's state rules there. What we can regulate on the zoning side is businesses opening on August first.
so, well, again, they can't really open on August 1st because you're not
Right.
gonna have anything, it's gonna be sold till 2025.
Right, but
So-
what we can do is at least give us time to get other stuff in place too. The
Well, the
other,
other thing that there is that fits into it, which is in between is what's going on with the gummies, the edibles, okay? Because that, they didn't look at regulating quite as much as what they did with the flowers, so. You know, whether they're gonna sell those through, but that would at least put a moratorium on the city not to have edibles to be sold here as well, which I think might be wise for us as a city, okay, to protect the city.
Didn't we, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we adopt or
we
recommend
did.
a moratorium?
Yes, we did, and it was in our minutes, and we did that about a year ago when the edibles were first brought up, that we did it, and we did that. Was actually, didn't it come up during the time we were looking at the gun, temporary
Yeah.
gun thing that there was
With the
for,
auction.
the auction house?
Auction place.
There was, it was at that same time that we put that in there, so it is in right now.
Through the city council?
So they can.
No, it went through us
Went
through
through
planning and zoning.
You,
But council.
but I
was-
think you made the recommendation to
The
council.
council, and it went through
Yeah.
council too, I think, yeah. Cause we did that at that time, it was.
Would the moratorium be just for 1 year from the time it went in? Or would it be, can we
I can't
take that
remember
same?
what we.
I believe
what
it
we
was just
agreed
a
on.
6-month or something like
Yeah,
that.
so I
So
think we ought to do
they
this
have already
through
expired.
2025, at least to protect us for what's going on up to that point. And then it gives us time to go through our ordinance or what we're gonna do for
So
code,
this-
but at least it protects us between now and
You can address
2025.
it
So
between
what
now
I'm
and.
hoping will happen is we're studying this, we know and that's one of the conditions the law says, in order to do this moratorium, we have to either be conducting a study or authorizing a study or holding this public hearing, we have to be working on it somehow,
Well, we
which
could-
I think we could schedule a public hearing
Absolutely,
for
Yeah.
For a
potentially
yeah.
to do a temporary interim moratorium. We could recommend to the city, and whether we do the public hearing, it sounds like is how it would work, is
I
that we
think we
would.
ought to do it here and then go from here to city council after it's been done,
At least
because
have the
we're gonna
hearing.
have to turn, yeah,
So
because we're gonna have to write the ordinance or
we'll
whatever
have
we're
to
gonna
draft
do.
it here,
Gotta
and
come
it'll
on
go
here.
to council, and the council could always tweak the language when it gets there, if you
Yeah.
wanna add or move, as long as. it's
At least
still
we could
follow
do
the
that
law.
and then council could approve what we did here and then we'd have it on record to what's being done.
Yeah.
So for tonight, do we have to make a recommendation or anything at this meeting
I
tonight
would,
let's
I
make-
would,
to get it?
Let's just make a
I
recommendation.
would make a
and put it on the
recommendation
agenda
so
for
that we
next
can
month.
have a public hearing next month.
I would like a public hearing next
I
month.
would-
Let's get it going and get it down there so it's taken care of.
What do we have to do between now and a public hearing next month to be ready for a public hearing next month on this?
Just put this out for what we want to do for the top part of it.
No, you actually have to draft what the language is that you want to.
Be adopted.
What would we
I
want?
mean, we could do it.
So if we
could-
take what I wrote here
Yeah.
and did, our proposal would be a temporary interim moratorium prohibiting the sale, manufacturing, or distribution of cannabis while further study is conducted, with the moratorium to expire January first, 2025.
Exactly.
That the
That's
city
it.
of Orinoco adopts,
So that would be
Yeah.
our proposed text amendment for next month,
Yeah.
that we would add that language.
Yeah.
And we can always, between now and at the discussion next month during the public hearing, it can be changed.
Yeah. Make sure
I
you're
think
ready
that
for
this is
COVID.
it in simple, but. Go ahead.
Except that, remember, this posting has to be prior to your meeting, so you can't be changing things
No,
right up until the.
no,
Yeah,
I
but
think
Up
during,
to the posting, things can be altered, but once the notice has been posted, it
Right.
cannot change.
I think that this is just pretty simple and straightforward and it
So-
encompasses everything, so.
So what this is saying if we don't draft something before August first, people can do something if we don't have
No,
anything in
no,
place.
no, no, no. What it is, August first, again, there's gonna be any licenses that are gonna be given until
By the
January
state.
1st, 2025 by the state, so. But it's gonna be, the rest of it for cultivation growing is gonna go into effect, okay, and anybody that gets caught with. 2 ounces or less is not gonna go as go to court or go to jail or whatever else that way, so. Those are going into effect August 1st. And you can't change that, that's
On the personal use.
on the personal
side,
use,
Yeah,
okay.
but this is about commercial.
It's commercial, okay, so,
Okay, so what do we have to do for tonight?
well, we're just.
Make a
we
recommendation.
Make a motion that we're
Motion.
gonna put this on the agenda for next, huh?
JP already moved,
Okay,
Kathy seconded.
Okay. so
then
that's in
we-
place.
Now we're
Let's
having
go
a
for a vote.
discussion.
Yeah.
We got
Well,
discussion.
okay, time out. So the motion and the second is to set a public hearing
Yes,
where the moratorium will be introduced. Is that correct?
interim moratorium.
Interim moratorium.
And we need a time at 6:45.
Well, because we have the other one at 6:35, we can set the second one at 6:40.
okay,
Yeah,
or 6:40.
it's always, fluid, but you can't start before a certain time.
6:40.
On August 2nd, or August 10th.
August 10th, correct.
And thank you, Kathy, for doing the rest of
Yeah.
it. It all matches up.
So I do have this in a Word doc, and I'll email it to you.
Well, I'm just gonna sit here and
Okay, wait.
So it's,
with you
It's-
afterward.
But I've got my own little research stuff, and I'll send that one too. Because that does have some questions straight out of the League of Minnesota Cities, as well as a link to the 300 and some page doc if you wanna look stuff up. And it does have some of the same points you brought up, that this is only commercial stuff we're talking. Consumers are not impacted, their personal use, it's gonna happen. Nothing's changing that. And yeah, I had 2 pounds in their home. It can transport up to 2 ounces. It is adults age 21 and up. People can still get pulled over for driving under the influence.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah,
people
I
are
didn't
not-
wanna go into any of
No,
that side.
people are also, this is the other side of it though, is the Clean Air Act and all that, you still can't smoke in restaurants, you can't smoke in the public building. And
What
the
about-
city does have the ability to put something on the books on the council side if you guys wanted to
Have
have.
the ability to have your firearms confiscated if you get caught with it.
Yeah, so there are some things the council can do to adopt ordinance wise to reinforce at those types of things, that it has to be on private property and.
But let me ask, is, just out of curiosity, is there anything in there about smoking around young children?
No,
Yes, you can't smoke in cars. There are,
I didn't go that far.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
but
are-
I'm a neighbor and I'm blowing it on purpose
I
at
don't
the
know.
neighbor's house.
Yeah, that's where you're gonna get
I
into.
think that's probably something that'll
Sonny,
get
you
ironed
probably know
out
what
with
I'm
the
talking about.
lawsuits.
Oh, she blew it at the neighbor's house.
Eventually, there will be lawsuits that probably address that one way or the other, and that's probably when the gray part of that gets settled.
Yeah, it's,
It's a new law, it's black and white, and those gray edges are always lawsuits.
oh, and there's gonna be tons of those that are gonna be coming up. I mean, it has been with.
In the meantime, the little bit we can do on our side is just
keep
put
it
this
out
in
of the
place
city.
so we can figure out what does the city of Orinoco want us to do
Right.
or not. And
And
we
I
can do
would
it
suggest-
responsibly one way or the other, whatever they.
And
Well,
I
maybe
would
that should,
suggest
maybe that
we
should
put
put out the
additional.
newsletter that they're gonna have that public
No,
hearing.
I mean, you can't go against the state law, I don't
Yeah.
think, with what
No,
goes on.
but what she's
Can't
saying,
ban it.
No.
There is.
no, I'm saying additional boundaries
Well, but
that
you,
Kathy's talking about.
But that'll be a different one.
Yeah.
Right now, it's
Yeah.
just this temporary
no,
thing we
no, no.
put in place. That's gonna be a future one where we
Can-
talk about that,
Can
so.
we like walk down the middle of the street drinking a beer? I mean, a lot of cities,
Depends
a
on the
As long as
lot
you
of cities,
So long as it's in a bag, yeah, then you can do it.
okay.
I
So then
think
you
right
can,
now,
then you can adopt the,
Depends on the city and the town.
I think
Okay.
right now at Thursdays on First, you can walk down the middle of the street drinking a
Only
beer.
on
Well, that's-
specific
that's-
days.
Rochester, we're talking about Orinoco.
Well, I'm just,
So we can-
I'm just saying, you
I
know,
think they
that,
also smoke.
I-
I mean, I think
You
it
can't
was
have,
also
you can't have
something
beer out here.
inspecting, you know, I mean.
So that is addressed in that there are some public permits that can be issued. There's like 14 different licenses and I think one of them is for events. But
Yeah.
that's not what we're gonna get into right now. All we're
This
talking
is what
about-
we wanna do right now is do
That's
this.
gonna be a
get it
longer
done.
discussion
Baby
later on.
step.
I'm ready to move forward.
This is,
So we
this
can-
is, this is.
Because I'll tell you
16
what,
months.
it's,
We can baby step this right now and just
yeah, I think that's right we
get
do.
this piece here. Cause that gives us the time to hire our consultant to help us work through our code and say, this is on our list of, I'm up to like 8 or 9 things now. To make sure we've got something that addresses it one way or the other.
Do we need a
So-
vote?
Do we need to vote?
We
to
had
have it?
discussion already, right?
Yeah, discussion and,
Yeah.
motion.
I was just waiting for all of you to stop talking to,
Can I read what I sort of have?
would you please?
I have a motion by JP to hold a public hearing, second by Kathy, to schedule that. On an interim moratorium on the sale of marijuana at 6:40 on the 10th. Wording is, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends that the Orinoco City Council adopts a temporary interim moratorium prohibiting the sale, manufacture, or distribution of cannabis while further study is conducted with the moratorium to expire January 1st, 2025. How does that sound?
Yeah,
I just-
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Basically plagiarized. Okay,
Please do.
so that works for us,
Yes,
that's,
yeah.
that's what we're voting on.
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you, Colleen.
We're,
So,
I would not.
what was that?
because we're a team. It's not plagiarism.
So is there any further discussion?
Go.
And if.
Yes, I know. That's me.
And if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of setting this public hearing for August 10th at 6:40 PM, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The public hearing for the recreational use of marijuana temporary interim moratorium is set for August 10th at 6:40 PM.
In this one.
So
That one was fun, wasn't it?
Oh,
Ready for the next one?
it was spirited, that's for sure.
I mean, the last time I probably had a zoning discussion that spirited was the chicken hearing when I was in the township and they were talking roosters, so. Nothing gets people
Everybody should have a
fired up
rooster.
like chickens.
Can we get through the next one in 15 minutes?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's try to get out, yeah.
Yes, so the next one, so had conversations this last week and there's been some road closures due to construction, and with that, the response time for some of the emergency vehicles and the 2 of the 5 calls have been pretty critical. So response time matters. 30 seconds, 2 minutes can really matter in saving somebody's life. So one of the things that I took a look at because of zoning is we have our future land use map. So when you look at it, that's this one over here, the very lovely colorful one. It got updated in 2020. And really the only changes when I was looking back at it, it was updated because of city water and sewer. So what they did is, here's, we plopped it in here because we know that's where the plant's going. And the blue stuff on here, down through here, that's our city buildings up through here. What we don't have right now, if you think of our town as if it's on a river.
The next one over there.
Yes, so think of our town like it's on a river. And it's basically Highway 52 is our river. We've got 2 bridges across Highway 52. And what happens if we've got road construction and different things, really, of those two bridges, only one will even get us onto 52 to service the highway. If there's accidents, if there's emergencies, and to get across, if we have one of the bridges blocked off for construction. Or right now, we've got this side blocked off, people are having to go all the way around town.
Or
to-
all the way up.
Yep, and if there's a fire up by the church there. We can't get emergency vehicles or people through there. So, I mean, there's response times that could be critical for somebody's life. But what it kind of comes down to when you live on a river is you have to have a little redundancy built into your responses. So what they're trying to do is, we know there's a blockage over here, so do you temporarily park a truck on the other side or the ambulance or something on this side? So somebody can hopefully get there and get to help people. But the other piece of that is when you talk redundancy is long-term, temporary for a day or two, that's okay. But we really need to have a strategy, and that's where we come in on planning and zoning. We have a strategy for our parks. These little dots over here, future parks.
Nothing for emergencies.
You look on this whole side, there's nothing on the west side of Highway 52.
A question.
emergency
You
For
brought,
city, for anything,
you brought this up.
yeah.
Now, this is a situation that we discussed through fire department and first responders. What have they discussed and how are they addressing the issue? Because
Well,
they brought this, they brought this up before, but needing a
Trained
second.
first responders in the last couple weeks, and I'm taking a class to be able, so now it's kind of.
And then she
Well,
tried giving me a
it's-
heart attack to be my.
Resuscitate you?
well, what we did,
But-
and I was working with this, okay, with
Yeah,
Johan, okay, and I'm trying to do it and working through the fire department and everything else that way, and what we were trying to do is to temporarily put like the brush vehicle that there is over on the other side. And then we had talked about first responders to be able to take stuff home with them during this time to at least be able to respond on the other side. So that was because we had to jump on it right away, and it was a matter of what can we do? You didn't want to have a fire truck, but I think what you're looking at is more long-term, okay?
that's, zoning is long term.
And so with that, we're also looking at what do we want to do with the fire hall? And is this the right place to put the fire hall? Where it is here, or are we gonna put another one? And so that's when you look at, do you want to do a city hall fire department type of a facility and still keep this, where you could have one on one side and still have the other? So there's lots of,
It's not that the city would ever get rid of the land, but we've got other uses for the land as a city.
oh,
So
no,
we
but we could do two of them is what I'm trying to say, so.
Yeah.
And I looked at what's going on with water and sewer because we've got property that's out there, but that's on this side again, not where you're looking at the other side, which is what you want to have something on the other side of 52.
We need that redundancy. We need the space. The city needs space over on that side. And the first step is just indicating to people who might purchase future land that there is land over there zoned someday for city services.
And I'd like to have it somewhere close to what you've got over right now for Casey's, which has land that's available that there is, and that would be close to be able to get on the freeway and have access to it right away. And that would also take care of the growth that there would be going south.
Well, one of the things when you look at, if you're talking emergency services, is you need to have a drive-through access. So there's a long list of things. And when you look at some of that, it's really about buying land, not for what your immediate needs are, but for your phase 1, your phase 2, your phase 3.
Mhm.
And so you might have this chunk of land that the city ends up buying. And there's ways you can work through your phase 1 is your immediate needs, you build on that. And there's different things you can even do to, start looking at, do you do some combination FEMA rooms or something where you could do your emergency operations center? But you can also look at, do you have like a backup regional response for Rochester has their regional response center, but if something goes kapooey there, could we be a secondary backup? we're located north of Rochester, close enough to respond. But we're also
Yeah,
on the, you know, there's just different ways you can work in multi-purpose into that. But step one is we do need to start looking at this map again to see what else we don't have. Cause I'm pretty sure when I looked at it a couple of years ago, I wasn't sitting here, but when I'm looking at the west side of the highway with our two bridges, we don't have any redundancy on that side when we look at city services support. And so that's one thing that I see there, but we may have other things we need to look at. So my thought is we do need to start that discussion of what else is missing. And when we do get our RFP and our consultant on board, that's probably one of our high priority items we do need.
One
to
of the things
look
I'm
at.
really concerned about when you bring all this up. You know, we did them first two projects up on the south end of Minnesota Avenue. They had the road open and closed and back to open up that within a day and a half. This is a week and a half.
Yeah,
The
no,
is closed. Now, there's no reason for that.
I don't
They
think
can
it should
doing
be
one section
allowed.
at a time. That shouldn't even be allowed in the
No.
first place. For-
Well, and they
it's been
did it
10
up
days
by
this
us
has been
for
closed.
weeks,
Yeah.
Exactly.
weeks. And there were emergencies on West Center Street.
Well,
It was a
again,
The
bad
biggest piece
situation.
is at the end of the day, liability. And if somebody does not survive and could the response time have been improved? There's that gray area you talk about.
Right.
and just so you know, with that, they were able to have gravel on part of the one so we could get out, okay? And I drove it even though the road was closed to see if I could get over it when I was it was Monday night, so it was just to see, and you could do it even though it was closed, but you could, and so they knew that they could at least get out, but I
But
think
it's still closed.
what you're saying, and I believe that it's the right discussion, that we've got a plan for something down the road in the future, and I agree 100%
Our
with that.
planning
I
and
think
zoning,
that's-
so here's our planning part, folks.
Mhm.
And step one is another baby step, but it's just start by saying, what else is missing on the map? So start thinking about it, make your list. Next time in the next few weeks, as you're driving through small towns or the rest of the summer here, what do you like about the small towns? What are you finding? What are services that you're seeing happening? Because that's what we need to make sure is on our list. So we can get it onto our planning map. So developers, when they're out there looking at it, they'll be like, well, I see there's supposed to be some parks in that area. Oh, and I see maybe there's this corner of land over here that's now marked as blue for future city services. Maybe I better check into that. Because one of the things it could do potentially is if you have your city hall, maybe there's a room in there that's our public library wing for phase 3. You don't know what's out there or whatever it might be, that having that location there could make the other land around it more valuable as well. So
Well,
that's,
the city's gonna have to do something
Yeah.
because we're using that upstairs, we're using the basement for city hall. There's no elevator in this building. That's
No.
illegal as hell. That's not
Well,
accessible to the
Well,
public.
That's-
we've got that
It's
one.
not accessible to handicap.
Well, we're working on that and that's already been handled, so I'm just letting you know, that's already been handled, but it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
and that's beyond planning and zoning. But right now, what we can do is take a look at this. So I guess my request is, and I don't know that we have to have anything proposed to the city council. I think for zoning, we just have this on our agenda as a discussion item for the next couple meetings as time allows. But knowing that we're gonna get this RFP done, get our person hired. And that's one of the
And they
things
can help us.
I would like them to help guide us through, because they work with all these other towns. What are other towns doing here as well? In addition to, we already know we're missing city service future on that side. What else do we need to do? When we look at all of it, because we do have a unique city in that it is like a river city.
Well, and the other thing is with the EDA, that's where, you know, there's and council, you know, the three entities really need to be driving that whole thing. And ultimately, I agree with you. Somewhere along the line, this city's gonna have to bite the bullet and buy some land, because we have nothing.
Buy some,
We
sell some.
gotta do that, and we have to get, equipment too, to go along with that. So just doing that, you have to have, yeah, it is, it's true.
So it's not just revising a map, I mean, it's like.
No,
it's a
but
start,
someone is
though.
revising a map.
Earn some money, so.
What we can do here in this room for zoning and planning is plan. So I'm just saying we should do our job, do some planning and when we get our person hired, our company hired, should be one of our priorities.
And I think it's great that you brought that up. I
Yeah,
really do.
I do.
You know, it's something I hadn't thought of, so
Those are
thank
things
you.
that are important.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have a quick question here too, because we had like 25 different discussions.
I believe that was 35, but.
Okay, okay.
There's another one.
So, okay, sewer and water committee is putting another project on planning and zoning. I caught that somewhere from you, son.
Yeah.
So what exactly was about, who
what was
wants
that?
something?
We need to, look at her.
Wasn't about a hookup
Emergency
schedule.
services.
No, it was water and sewer hooked up to the,
It's a 12-month
Municipally.
notice.
Yeah, that they have
Municipal.
12 months to hook up.
How long they have to,
I'll get you that stuff.
okay. And so that would be things to add to the future discussion, and then Kathy added, on the to-do list, we need to look through the applications as well.
That was as we load them into the system. Looking at,
I was actually a training piece you were talking about.
the
That all of
training,
us, yeah, all of us.
Well, I
needed.
think we should
do we
do it as
schedule,
a general,
general training is looking through the
Well-
planning forms that we have.
I thought part of what you wanted to do was to look at it and, see what we need to change, which is more of a business thing than a training thing. So just, part of our regular meeting. So could that be part of business? Is a new business item we talk about?
It's just existing forms, we could do it for,
Well, and they're all online. You can
Instead of a-
look at them. You can look at it.
Okay,
I think
Yep.
all right.
Okay,
TikTok.
all right. Is there a
I
motion
make a
to
motion.
adjourn?
Sure.
I think about it.
I can second it.
There you go.
It has been moved.
Out there somewhere.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Meeting is adjourned at 8:27 PM.
Okay, how many years you been doing it?
Both he and Jim did, so I'm not sure what happened there, but
Oh, yeah.
you said I make a motion to adjourn and then my husband said.
Something goes a little long.
I
and we
thought
put off-
Scott-
Go ahead and
Yeah,
do
second.
Jim
Stuff that
Phillips
we had
and
nothing to
Scott
do with.
seconded.
It's like,
Yeah, I said that.
Well, right,
You
right.
probably know what I'm talking about.
But I
Did you
mean,
get a call?
But yeah,
Oh,
well,
it's-
accomplishing. Yeah, I mean, there was meetings.
Is that why you need
years
to be
ago,
out of
they
here?
would be here,
Huh?
you know,
Is that why you
30
need to
minutes,
be out of
done.
here at 8:30?
Well, we almost always had.
Call that you have to
Just
call
told me
in?
No,
There was
no,
nothing
it's
on the agenda.
Canceled, yeah, that happened
I-
multiple times.
I
People,
know
Nothing on the
these
agenda.
people out city
not enough
hall.
people or nothing on the agenda.
But I mean, this is great with. Restaurant.
Oh, yeah, that's exciting news. That is very.
Starting to go after your house yet on doing,
They're coming up the road, I think.
I know they started on Monday, and that's why I was kind of curious.
Yeah, they haven't got to my place yet.
I don't know.
Yeah, but, no, it's gonna be interesting, because Ellington, once they're here,
Center Street.
Over
once Ellington's here, they're gonna
in the
stay.
yard.
Okay, and work through everybody.
Painted my yard up last fall.
But did you get a chance to get all of the electricians and all the? other
Yeah, we've
stuff?
started on the electrical process already.
Okay.
Finish it yet, we got the first tricky part. Here, I'll get another here. I'll do one day. You know,
oh, yeah,
yeah.
cancel.
Okay.
Oh,
Should be good.
gosh.
Starting with-
Thinking of-
Stop recording.
I think you just had
Yeah.
a meeting